Hey, buddies. It is, gentlemen, it's good to see you this evening. And I do notice a few new guys. A couple things just so you should know. This is a family, and it's a good family. It's a place where we understand that doing life with somebody else is more important. And I've shared my testimony a number of times, but I can tell you for true that the times in my life when I was going it on my own, going it by myself, isolated from God's men, were the times where I fell and ugly things happened. And the times when I had other believing men that I was hanging out with and doing life with, that was enough to keep me on the right path. And that's why I'm doing this. This is why God put me in this place, I think, because of that single thing. And so if you're new, man, we welcome you. I know it feels a little odd being uncomfortable around a bunch of guys. Hopefully they'll make you feel welcome. And if they don't, you let me know which ones are being unfriendly, and I'll slap them around for you. All right? I got one. Okay. How come everybody's pointing to you, Joe? Apparently, you need to have yourself a little corrective time. I was thinking maybe we could put you in timeout or something. Nah. Yeah. Anyway, here's the thing, guys. Few simple rules. What's said around the table stays around the table. And I pulled that card out last week and I said, hey, what I talk about up here, because this is real stuff that I'm sharing with Dr. Jim, it doesn't leave the garage. And then I found out it got dang broadcasted on YouTube. I actually was in a follow class and the wife of one of my guys said, hey, I watched you on YouTube. Is that true what you said about it? And I'm going, oh, crap. So anyway. So the stuff that goes around your tables apparently is private. The stuff I do up here, I guess, is not. But here's the thing. You're not here to fix each other. You're not here to do anything but pray for each other and support each other and walk through life. And that's the whole idea, right? So that's the deal, and we're glad you're here. If you plan on coming back, make sure you see Don. Where's Don hiding? Over here. He'll get you a name tag and everything you need, and that's it, man. No union dues, nothing. So anyway, hey, without further ado, would you welcome my friend Dr. Jim Hemden back up? And while he's coming up, we will work through session number 3, which is one I am not particularly excited about. Anymore. You know what? Isn't it nice to know you're surrounded by guys that don't want you to give any mercy to me? Hi, brother.
I won't let him down.
Yeah, thanks. That's awesome to hear.
So, Rich.
Hi.
Let's start with what feelings did you have left over from our last session?
Well, you know, I mean, we talked a lot I guess the whole thing was about this understanding how you allow God to work into your life to put that old nature in its place. And that place needs to be away. And that, you know, that's a hard concept for me to kind of make practical. But it's pretty interesting because I really prayed a lot about that this week, and I found that just praying about it and just asking God to do that instead of Him giving me the points of how to do that has actually been more effective.
So he actually knows how to do it right, huh?
Yeah, he does, but I've kind of figured out that, matter of fact, it kind of leads into tonight or today, is that I'm not sure he wants me to know how. Because if I really knew how, then I'd be doing it.
That's true.
You know, so it goes back to that thing we talked about whose hands are on the wheel.
Exactly.
But so that went really good, and I actually, even this later afternoon, had a really good talk with my wife.
Cool.
Which is one that I needed to have, and the interesting thing that she said, we were talking about, her brother is going through a bunch of stuff right now.
Okay.
And the difficulties that he's going through, we're talking about the reason that he's having the difficulties. And she said something about that, and I realized that as she was talking about him, she may have been talking about me too. I think she was being sneaky that way. And,
Well, maybe she wasn't being as sneaky as you might think.
well, either way, I said something. I always thought that, I worry about becoming an old man.
Her old man?
No, I worry about me becoming an old man, because a lot of the old men that I've known have been really cynical, crotchety, what's the other word? Critical. And so I shared some stuff. I said, I really don't want to become that kind of guy.
Okay.
And instead of saying, oh, good idea, or patting me on the back like I hoped for, she pulled out something from your book. Matter of fact, I need to know if she's been seeing you.
No. But,
Okay, because she said, what do you think the root of that problem is? And because even now, I struggle with being a little bit cynical and a little bit critical about things that I'm not in control over. Matter of fact, I was so ticked off at the coaching staff of the Green Bay Packers, I almost walked out and didn't watch the end of the game.
that would have showed him.
How could you, got the game in your hands, and you go into, oh, we're going to protect our 7-point lead. It's like, what is wrong with you guys? Anyway. But here's the thing she said. She said that, I was thinking about this, and she asked me what I thought the root was, and I wasn't really sure. She says, it's really obvious to me what the root of, it was obvious to her what the root of my problem was. She says, it's arrogance, it's pride. And boy, I got bowed up over that.
You got
I
bowed
didn't
up over
her
the
saying
truth?
it was my pride and arrogance that,
Wait, you got bowed up over the truth?
you too, huh? But the fact is you know what? Instead of reacting, I just thought about what she said.
Now, that was different.
That was different
How did
than
you
me
do
normal.
that?
Well, I think it's because I've been praying that I would react different. And I think God just gave me a moment to do that. But I realized that, and I've always known that I like to control things. Hey, team captain on the football team, charge of the offensive line,
Sure.
telling people what to do. Going to the fire service, doesn't take long before I become a captain. Pretty soon I'm a chief. They call it leadership ability.
Yeah.
But when I look at it, it's me just being a control guy.
Yep.
And when I think back on my career was about controlling the uncontrollable. We'd go to an emergency, a big fire, and we wouldn't leave until my guys got it fixed.
So how are you going about trying to control your wife into having a better relationship with you?
Well, that's where we run into some difficulties.
It doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't work at all. Matter of fact, there's one specific thing I'd like to talk to you about concerning that. But I guess the thing I wanted to share with you though is that I did realize that my pride and my arrogance, I think, are the thing that drives my desire to control.
Yeah. No, you're spot on.
Yeah, and
What's it like to see that?
well, again, it's one of those things I'm not sure what to do with yet.
Well, maybe you have to own it before you can do something with it.
Okay.
And how do you own it if you don't feel good about noticing it?
Well,
I'm not saying feel good about the issue. I'm not saying feeling good about the need to control and the
Right.
arrogance. But to feel good about noticing that this pattern exists is the first step in producing
Yeah.
change.
well, I think I've noticed kind of from my Christian life that the control issues. I mean, if you ask me right now about controlling things, I'm fairly comfortable saying I really realize that I don't have control. That God is the one who controls things.
Now, does that
And so-
mean you're failing when you don't have control?
Well, I think that God has grown me up to a place
Okay.
to where I'm understanding that He's the one that controls things, and so if I want to have some impact on that, it has to go through Him. But I don't know that I made the connection to why I was that way until I looked really deep down at this pride, arrogant thing.
So as you see that wounded part of you that has the need to make up for being you,
Yeah.
by being extraordinary, what happens?
Don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
control and arrogance.
well, I understand that, but you're talking, and we talked last week about the changing, and allowing God to be different in us, okay? You know, I mean, God in us
To help us be different.
to help us be different.
Sure. How does he go about that?
Well,
Rich?
here's the thing, I guess here's the thing I'm trying to have a struggle with. Because of me, God puts me in positions of leadership.
Okay.
And so, on one hand, I know that I have to exhibit some control over those things that he set me in charge of. But how do I do that? Again, it's that old nature, new nature thing.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think Jesus is a good leader?
Yeah, absolutely.
Average?
No,
Above
I
average?
mean, he's a great leader.
Not bad.
Great.
Okay. You wouldn't
Outstanding.
mind being that good a leader?
Oh, yeah, I'd like that.
How does he do it?
How does he do it? Well,
How does he do it? Does he make sure
I
that he
think- I think-
demands that each person do exactly what he says?
no, I don't see him demanding anything.
No, I don't either. What
Yeah.
do you see?
Well, I see him leading by example,
Okay.
and I see him, I mean, he even talked about it when he was in the upper room, about being the servant of all,
Right.
but still,
So you're talking about he leads by grateful humility,
yes, yeah. Which is the opposite of leading by
arrogance.
internal pride and arrogance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first step is let's approach it the way he would approach it.
Okay,
He would want you to feel good about noticing that you're trying to compensate and make up for feelings of inadequacy by being so spot on, in control, that no one sees that fearful part of you.
I ain't afraid.
You're lying.
All right, well, I'm not really afraid. Well, I guess,
Then you're
you
really
know what,
lying.
I guess I wouldn't want to define it that way, but I guess I'm finally comfortable with the fact that God controls, that I can trust him enough to control things that I don't have to.
Right.
And so I'm getting
But
to that
notice
place.
even
but-
how God and Jesus do this control thing.
Well,
He invites, doesn't he?
yeah, yeah. Well,
He influences by giving to us what we don't deserve before we even deserve to get it.
yeah, mercy and grace,
Mercy and
all
grace.
wrapped up into one thing. Yeah, I see that.
Can you imagine giving that kind of leadership with your wife?
No,
That's honest.
well, I mean,
It's honest. I'll give you
I
that.
know, but so.
Are you committed to that? To that no?
Well, no, I don't want it to be that way.
Cool.
I don't want it to be that way, but again, you know, it's just like for all my life, I've been trained about how to do it in this old nature, and so learning how to do it in this new nature is clumsy. It's not easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And having see, Jesus wasn't afraid of being awkward and clumsy.
I guess he was perfect. He didn't have to worry about that.
He was sweating blood in the garden.
Yeah, that's true.
And he said, Papa God, I don't want this cup. I don't like it.
Yeah.
He was honest,
So
wasn't
there was still struggle
he?
inside.
He had struggles.
But he knew the truth, yeah.
But he allowed himself to start where he was starting. And he said, but thy will, not mine, be done, Father.
Yeah.
He didn't deny that he was afraid. He didn't deny that he didn't want that cross for him.
Right.
So being awkward and clumsy, learning a new skill,
Yeah.
what's so terrible about that?
I didn't say it was going to be terrible, just uncomfortable. You know, it's something that it's a new ground again.
Right.
Yeah.
So the more gentle and respectful you are with yourself, the safer it feels to risk letting more of him live through you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That nature that is valuing your wife right where she's starting.
Okay, so let me go to this other thing, because this might help me. And so I got this situation, and it revolves around finances at home, okay? God, and I understand God provides for us, right?
Sure.
And, but there are a couple of areas that I have asked my wife, and at points demanded of my wife.
How's that worked?
Just a minute, I gotta finish my story. Because I'm righteous in this, okay?
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing, I mean, so I gotta figure out how to do this in God's way. I've told her that I don't want her using credit cards, okay? Credit card debt has caused us nothing but trouble in our life, okay?
Does she agree with that?
She says she does, but I don't believe she does,
Okay, what makes you doubt that?
because she keeps using them
And
when I ask her not to. And so, you know,
and
I
what
mean,
does she say when you ask her?
now wait a minute, I gotta finish my story, boss.
Honey, you don't have so much time.
All right, well, here's the
There's
thing.
people out there impatient.
Impatient people. Here's the deal. I've said this is how I would like for our household finances to be run.
Sure.
And I've asked her to respect that. And she doesn't. And once a year when I'm trying to get ready for taxes and stuff, because I'm not a detailed guy, I don't pay attention to every dollar, you know. I get everything together for taxes. I pull up all the records of how much money she spent on this stuff that I don't value as much as she does. And so it's not like I don't give her any money. I mean, she gets a certain amount every time I get paid to take care of her stuff. But it's just like she never thinks that's enough. And so she continues to do this. And so I have been trying to control that for a number of years, unsuccessful.
Okay.
How do I influence her to change? Because that's what we're talking about, right? Is
Right.
not forcing, but influencing.
The first thing you do is you go to her and say, you know, I'm really stumped.
Okay?
I feel absolutely powerless. And I feel badly about that. Because somehow I have not been able to convey to you the cost, the impact the credit card system has had on our lives. I've failed you somehow to convey that. Help me know how to help you in this. Help me to help you, because I'm failing miserably at it.
Dang it. So it's my fault again.
It's not about fault.
Well, yeah, it is.
It is?
Everything's about my fault.
Well,
I'm the husband.
that's probably a big problem, isn't it? Because if everything is about fault, then you have to find out whose fault it is. When you start looking for the fault, you grab a flashlight, a judgmental light
Okay.
that only looks one direction. Now, once you start doing that, you're in your old nature. You pick up that flashlight, that judgmental flashlight, you are in your old nature.
So whether I'm pointing it at her or pointing it at me,
Either way,
it-
God wants nothing to do with flashlights in this covenant of grace that we live under. It's the lantern of His nature respecting you and her.
okay.
The truth is, you have failed to convey to her your control in this area.
You mean my lack of control in that area?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So it hasn't worked to try to control it.
Right.
But instead, you go to her and you acknowledge that. I have failed to be able to dent this area.
Well, I got to admit, I actually haven't tried that. Thought I tried everything.
Well,
Missed that. by
Disarming,
just a little
disarming, disarming grace is often the last thing a guy will try.
bit. Uh-huh.
But I think she'd be so surprised that she might actually believe you that you really are interested in her ideas.
We communicate okay. I mean, you know, we have gone through this whole kitchen remodel. That's another beautiful story.
That's a tough one sometimes.
But the fact is, you know what? It's her kitchen, and so I basically allowed her to design it how she wanted instead of me stepping in. I gave her my ideas,
Good.
which were outstanding ideas, I might add.
Of course.
But she wanted a different thing. And so, you know, I mean, I've been willing to yield in those areas that are hers, so to speak.
And what did that cost you?
A fortune.
Let's see.
But
If
it was
cost you a fortune doing it the way you were wanting it.
no, it was going to cost
her
a
be
fortune either
unhappy.
way. It was going to cost a fortune
Exactly.
either way. But no, but the fact is that she is thrilled with the outcome.
Right.
And guess what? You're right. It didn't cost me anymore.
Right.
And the fact is, you know, I just don't cook in there
But it
anymore.
did give her a message that you respected.
And valued her
valued.
desires. Yeah.
Yeah. That's influence.
Yeah.
Rich, that's influence. How often do you convey that kind of message to her?
Yeah. Probably not often enough.
Okay. Again, feel good about noticing that you don't do it as much as might be helpful.
Okay.
Okay? Because the moment you try to control anything, it turns into a problem,
A mess.
a
yeah.
mess. Because you're not God. But influence is only possible if you're not trying to have control.
Okay.
You've tried control in the financial.
Right.
So now you release the control and
Well,
go
when
for
you say
influence.
release the control, I mean release that aspect.
Well, actually,
of-
release the illusion of control.
Okay.
Because that's what you have anyway.
But I'm still responsible.
Obviously.
But I'm still responsible
Yep.
to be a good steward before God with that
Absolutely.
stuff, right? Okay.
And that's what you share with her when that issue needs to be coming up.
Okay. That's a pretty good plan.
Well, it treats her as a partner, not one of your firemen. She's not one of your firemen. She's your partner.
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
So is she.
Yeah. So we're past me treating her like a fireman, pretty much.
Well, except in areas that,
Except in maybe one or two just specific little
and those are
issues,
the
yeah.
areas that are not working well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
What a coincidence.
Just noticed that, really. All right, maybe not, so.
Did she ever agree to any of the homework with you?
Well, you know what? This week it was my fault because I just got overwhelmed with all the stuff that I had to get done. But the fact is we did talk about it, and I think that's what led to the discussion
Yeah.
today. And
So
so
you
that's
might want
a
to
breakthrough.
apologize to her for having dropped the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would happen if you did that?
She'd probably accept that
Yeah.
because we're at peace right now.
Well,
Yeah.
and now that you're at peace is the time to build.
Yeah, I have found that I've made a lot more progress in our relationship when we're not fighting. It's kind of a
It
miraculous thing, I
depends on the
think.
kind of fighting you do.
Well, you know what I mean. To try and deal with stuff when I'm not in the middle of a conflict
Right.
seems to be a lot more helpful and positive.
For
than-
both of you,
And
absolutely.
so, yeah.
It
But,
means that it's important, not just at the moment, but it's fundamentally important.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was helpful. I think that one nugget about taking the responsibility for trying to control it and being bewildered and unsuccessful at sharing why it's important to me.
Right. It costs you nothing to have that kind of powerful vulnerability.
Yeah.
What's more important to learn and grow than be right.
Yeah.
That she'll listen to. That will influence her in a way that control never could.
So talking about this influence thing, how do I, just in everyday life, become a more positive influence in her life? I mean, obviously, if I need to change this behavior, what's that look like on an everyday basis?
Well, I'll tell you how I do it, but you may find a different way. All day long, a prayer that's going through my mind, through my heart, is, Lord, let me see myself and Sonia, as my wife, through your eyes. And to respond to what I see through your nature. And that is going through my head throughout the day.
So that's the same thing we talked about last week in how we take our old nature and put it in place and allow God's nature to be in us.
Right.
Got it.
And part of what our new nature does is provides loving supervision and guidance for wounded parts of us that are stuck in our old nature.
Yeah.
If you ignore them, they will drive,
Yeah.
and they will cause havoc.
All right, so this week, what are we doing this week?
Well, this time you're going to see if you can succeed to actually have that homework with her.
Okay,
And I want you to talk to her about that nugget on control and influence.
okay.
And another one that you are pretty strong on is the whole thing about blame.
Yeah.
And when you blame, you also then, if you feel blamed, you want to defend. Defending prevents change. You cannot change
So
something
really,
you're
that
defending.
finding fault.
The finding
does the same
fault
thing,
prevents change.
Okay.
Each person's busy defending. They go nowhere.
I don't know. I like.
Now, if you
I
really
like,
want to knock
I
the
like
ball
when
out
I'm
of the
right
game,
and she's wrong, but but I can't think of the last time that happened, so it's probably not really all that worthwhile.
yeah, it probably never happened. It's one
Okay,
of those
you
dreams.
say knocking the ball out of the park. I'm always good for a home
One
run.
way to do that is to let yourself actually enjoy this week, letting him through you. Love your wife. See her through his eyes. Respond to her through his nature. That's your inheritance. God gives you that ability, not as a set of rules, but a fundamental relationship that can come alive through you to her.
Sweet. All right,
Okay.
sir. Thank you again.
You take care, Rich.
Yay! Wow. All right, so I will admit to you that the last couple weeks have been stuff that I've dealt with, but that stuff tonight, stuff that's going on right now. It really is, you know. So I'll let you know how it goes. Yeah, or the disaster that ensues. Any of you guys got a spare bedroom? Really, I cook, I clean after myself. Not one guy raises their hand. You know what? Thanks a lot. What kind of friends do I have in here? Robert, thanks, Robert. This whole subject of control versus influence, guys, I don't know about you, but it's huge in my life. And I don't know, maybe there's different degrees of struggling with this kind of stuff, but there were a couple of verses that I found that I think helped me a little bit. The first one is actually in 2 Timothy 1, 6 and 7. Down at the bottom there, it says, "Therefore I remind you to stir up the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind." And I got to tell you this, guys. When I think of arrogance, and you know, most of you are getting to know me pretty well. Arrogance and pride is something that caused me nothing but difficulty in my life. And I honestly had stuff in a human sense that was worth being proud of. But the fact is the result of that pride has caused more damage. And all of a sudden I read this verse and I understand that God gave each one of us gifts. And it's really about comparing myself with other people. And so, you know, if I'm comparing myself with Mark and I'm looking at how good I am and how not good he is, man, that just feeds into my arrogance. And it absolutely discounts what God's saying. What God's saying is, listen, I built Mark a very particular way for a very particular purpose, and he is absolutely every bit as special as you are, Rich. And isn't it interesting how that takes the arrogance and the pride out of it, and all of a sudden you realize that the way that God cares about us really removes this whole concept of comparison. And I think that's just really an important kind of point to do. The other part of this is here where it talks about in Philippians, and this is a verse that I've known forever because it's had a huge impact on my life. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be made known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Don't be anxious about anything. In other words, don't worry about the control that you have or that you don't have. But in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God. If you do that, the peace of God, which goes way beyond, surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. And so here's the thing. If you guys really struggle with control, you're going to find yourself worrying about stuff that you have no control over. You're going to find yourself allowing your arrogance to get out of hand because you think you have control over it. And the fact is, guys, is really God is the only one who's in control. Everything else, he just allows us. And the sooner we come to grips with that and we take that false pride, that arrogance, and put it down with our sin nature where it belongs, all of a sudden God does some pretty amazing things through us. So I'll let you guys look at the questions there on the back. And there's also a section on the back that Dr. Jim wrote about blame and fault, and that's really worth reading. But here's the challenge for tonight. Accept God's power in the influence and relationships he's giving you by humbling yourself before him. Guys, I'll be praying this week that you understand or start to catch the vision of the fact that we have the opportunity to influence people, but we really have no control over changing anybody. God bless you guys. Father, be with these guys tonight in their conversations, and I just thank you for the opportunity to serve you. In Jesus' name, amen.